We all should be really grateful for the only fact of Kevin Magnussen's existence. Without him, the whole race in Jeddah would be a complete snooze fest. But still, there is quite a lot to analyze about this race, so let's start. Even before the start, it is very useful to check what sets of tires are still available for each driver, because it can have a huge impact on the whole race. And here you can see available tire sets for each and every driver. Usually those drivers who was knocked out in Q3 and Q2 tend to have new sets of soft remaining. Also, top teams usually try to save maybe one set in order to have an advantage. But at this moment everything was quite stable. It's interesting to see that both Aston Martins didn't have new hards or new mediums, only one new soft for Fernando. Also no new softs for Hamilton and Norris, which will play its part in a race. But let's move on to the race start. Here you can see a tire choice for race start, everyone on new compounds, only Bottas and Bearman on softs, and the start itself was pretty uneventful. Charles and Checo swapped positions back and forth, but as a result no change of position. Stroll gained only one place and some small changes down here, but nothing outstanding. Max managed to form a 1 second gap at the beginning on lap 2 already, so at this moment Leclerc was kind of a sitting duck. With Red Bull straight line advantage, it was just a matter of time where Perez would overtake him. Crash of Lance Stroll, a race-defining event, happened pretty early, on lap 6, which caused a safety car, which caused a pit stop wave, pretty much the only pit stop wave we ever had in this race. On the screen you can see how drivers were approaching the pit stop wave, and this exact position drivers that are second on a team like Norris, like Hamilton, like Perez, like Hülkenberg and like Zhou are in disadvantage. They face a choice: either double stack, make 2 pit stops in a row but those drivers will definitely lose position, or to remain on track and miss a perfect pit stop opportunity as a result, but gain some track position. We can exclude Ricciardo or Bearman from this rule, because they are too far from their teammates, which will not affect them. And here is the situation after the pit stop wave. We see that 4 of 5 drivers I mentioned decided to stay on track: Norris, Hamilton, Hülkenberg and Zhou. Red Bull went for double stacking the drivers, which resulted in a horribly unsafe release of Sergio Perez, which was his decision, by the way, not decision of team. And this situation provided us with at least some strategy variety, with at least some fighting and interesting points throughout the race. Otherwise we would see no fighting at all. Crash of Lance Stroll actually freed one place in a point zone, and the most interesting fight was actually for this place for P10. Now here you can see the restart results, barely any change of position, only Bearman overtook Tsunoda and only Ocon overtook Albon, otherwise no change. And this change of position was actually a result of a contact between Magnussen and Albon. Oliver Bearman made his F1 debut, and this debut was astonishing. He was a little bit lucky, because he gambled starting on soft and such an early safety car played in his hand, but otherwise he showed himself as a complete racing driver, already in 18 years of age. He made a couple of good overtakes, but the main thing is that he never made a mistake on a very difficult street circuit. And moreover, he managed to basically stay in racing pace. Here on your screen you can see racing paces, Leclerc being in red, Russell and Alonso in green, and Bearman in white. Of course, he was always a bit behind his teammate, for 1 second, maybe for half a second, but this is a perfect result. Remember, he got in the car just on Saturday morning, and on Sunday he already showed such a performance. He managed to stay in pace with Russell and Alonso. At the very end of the race, he picked up the pace and managed to save his P7 from Norris and Hamilton. Perfect result, perfect debut, and the impact on his career should be huge. Something in realm of Nick De Vries making his debut in Monza 2022. Now let's move on to the driver of the day, in my opinion, Kevin Magnussen. He presented us a show. Yes, he got his 10-second penalty from the restart, but he didn't know about it and he was fighting like a lion. He managed just to chop himself away throughout the whole middle group, becoming the first one in a midfield group, and he actually thought that it might give him this 1 point. It might present him with P10. After getting ahead, he managed to defend his position. It was a pure class and pure show. And just check this shot. Kevin Magnussen, Yuki Tsunoda, Esteban Ocon and Logan Sargent. Also Alex Albon here, but 4 out of 5 drivers in this group are absolute madmen. They are rage kings. No wonder why Norris, Hamilton, Hülkenberg and Zhou were extending as much as they could. The probability of a crash happening around this group was skyrocketing. But for some reason, the actual crash did not happen, and Kevin was defending perfectly. And as a side note, I was pretty surprised to see Logan Sargent so close to Alex Albon on the same strategy. But as the race evolved, Kevin Magnussen was actually defending too hard, he was losing a lot of time and he was kinda played by his team, because his team was not telling him that he had 20 seconds of time penalty. And at this point on lap 34, Nico Hülkenberg already had enough gap to make his pit stop and come out in front of Kevin. So Kevin was a little bit tricked by his team, but still he made a perfect teamwork. And the funniest part is that he still managed to get P12 because he was not lapped, unlike Esteban and all the following cars. Moreover, if Albon didn't make an overtake on Esteban, he could easily be P11, just on the edge of getting points. And if any car from top 10 faced some problems, he could still get any points. Kevin Magnussen, driver of the day. Now let's move on to tempo analysis. You can see the tempo charts from F1 pace, and we see that all the guys who stayed on track managed to be faster than their teammates. Because the medium-soft strategy in itself is faster than medium-hard strategy with an early pit stop, but Norris and Hamilton still finished in the very end of the group. All because the gain of pit stop under safety car conditions was actually higher than the tempo difference. Which is pretty unlucky for both of them, especially for Lewis, because he was defending pretty good from Piastri, who was clearly faster than him. He showed a strong pace advantage, 0.2 of a second over Russell, so he had quite a strong race, but still finished P9, basically last in this group. Daniel Ricciardo had a bad weekend. This weekend goes completely in favor of Yuki Tsunoda. He actually even made a spin at the very end of the race, and his pace overall was not so strong as Yuki's pace, despite Yuki constantly fighting. And now let's move on to strategy breakdown. We basically already discussed the whole strategy. I was pretty surprised that starting maybe from lap 15 all the way till lap 35, 36, 37 to the second wave of pit stop, newer hards were not faster than older mediums. This fact was quite astonishing. And also I can already say that Pirelli once again misjudged tire compounds for the whole season. One-stoppers suck. The fact that Piastri and Alonso easily made 43 laps, 41 of which were racing laps, on a used hard tire, basically tells us that drivers could do a non-stopper on a hard tire if rules allowed it. And as a result, we face a one-stop race. And one-stoppers are really bad races, because the variety of strategies is supremely low. Less strategy variety, less tension points around the track, where a faster driver on different strategy is approaching a slower driver and he has to make an overtake, but the slower driver does not want to give him this overtake. They start fighting, we can even have a collision, we can have a virtual safety car, even red flags, and more strategy variety we have, more tension points are forming around the track, and the higher is the probability of actually receiving a good race. In this one-stop scenario, we have no tension points, and if we didn't have Norris, Hamilton, Hülkenberg, Zhou and Kevin Magnussen, the absolute hero, there would be no tension points at all. and it sucks. And even if Pirelli choose C3, C4 and C5 compounds for this race, it wouldn't change the situation at all, because we see that C3 into C4 was actually faster than C3 into C2, and we still could have a one-stopper without safety car, and the race could be boring once again. Let's move on to driver standing. Max Verstappen is just 1 point out of perfect score. Charles managed to steal the fastest lap from him, but otherwise already crowned him a champion. Perez will never present a competition to Max Verstappen, he is already behind, but he tends to be kinda on par with Verstappen for first couple of races in previous seasons, but now he is already slower. Of course, no one from here could ever challenge Verstappen. George Russell has a decent start, kinda overperforming his car, but it is all due to Carlos Sainz actually missing. The second race, otherwise he should be in front of George. But still he is consistent, he manages to outperform Fernando, both McLarens and his teammate Lewis Hamilton. Oscar Piastri taking P4, it is actually huge for him, he immediately rises to P5 in driver standings, but otherwise situation is pretty stable. Now we move on to team standing. Clear P1 for Red Bull, clear P2 for Ferrari, perfect job from Bearman, good substitute, P7 out here. Yes, Carlos could be a little bit further, maybe P4, maybe P5, P6, but I can easily see a scenario where Carlos also takes P7 in this race, so good job and good substitute for Ferrari. McLaren and Mercedes are insanely close, Aston wouldn't have a chance to challenge them, all due to Lance Stroll being in the team, but in terms of pure speed, those three teams are kinda on point, and Ferraris are basically with them, maybe a little bit faster, but we all have a huge fight for P2 in Constructors' Championship on our hand. Haas F1 team, good job from them, scoring 1 point with good race from Magnussen and Hülkenberg, and they actually capture P6 in Constructors' standings. And this is it. Thank you very much for your view, leave a like, subscribe to our channel, leave a comment, see you soon.